Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I'm your host, Meg Reynolds, and I'm really excited about this week's episode. I feel like it's kind of a culmination of a lot of the things we've been talking about this season and almost sort of a continuation of where I left off last week saying, it's okay to live your life and love your life and chase your dreams right now amid all the chaos in the world. I talked about the art of happiness earlier this season, how important it is as a creative to have passions outside of your work. And so this week's episode, I really want to dive into the art of the spark, as by the title of the episode. I think a lot of people, especially us as women in our 20s, we lose our spark at some point. And I think most of the time we talk about that spark in regards to romantic relationships. And that is definitely important. But I think we also lose our spark in our careers and in the external validation that we need in the world. And all of that kind of ties together. But I felt like this episode was really important to talk about because, yes, this world is so loud and chaotic, but this world also is full of dopamine addicts and needing that instant gratification and quick dopamine hits. And I think that's how we lose our spark in life. And we don't appreciate those things. I've talked about before how everything I have been through in my life, the heartbreaks, the traumas, they have made the joy in my heart so much sweeter and so much better in a way because I have such an appreciation for it. And that's kind of what I wanted to make this episode about is not only the signs of you losing your spark, but how do we get our spark back? And I will never forget vividly. I've told this story on the podcast before, but if you're new here, you probably haven't heard it. My relationship that I was in 4 years ago now, who obviously we all know the stories if you've been around this podcast long enough and the ways in which he's continued to haunt my life in certain ways. But I will never forget the first time I went back home for the summer after moving to Nashville. I was in the bar with my friends and I was really struggling, not in struggling in the sense of feeling like I made a mistake in moving to Nashville, but struggling in this relationship that I knew wasn't right. I was losing myself so deeply, but we were just really trauma bonded and I was blinded and hello, that's how we got here. But I will never forget being in the bar and my best friend of 12 years looked me dead in my eyes. Again, mind you, this man just made me cry in the middle of the bar. He picked a fight with me while he knows I'm out with my friends because that's what he would do. And I will never forget my best friend grabbing my phone out of my hands and like holding it hostage from me, putting her other hand on my shoulders and like shaking me in the bar, just being like, where have you gone? Where is Meg? You have lost your sparkle. Where is she? And I have to say, it took so much bravery on her part to call me out like that and say that to me because I know that was really hard. Especially, again, we were drunk in the bar, like not the time and place you want to be having that conversation. But she could see that I was suffering. And this is somebody who's been in my life since I was 12 years old. That girl will be in my life. We have matching tattoos. She will be in my life to the day we die. She is a sister. I love her so, so dearly. But I remember my answer, I had no answer. All I could say to her was, I don't know. I don't know. And I knew I had lost myself. Did I say, I broke up with him a couple of days later. Did I get back with him? Yeah, I did. And continued time and time again because I just was a glutton for punishment. And we all know this had to do with the relationship I had with myself. And that's the title of the first episode of the podcast goes all the way back. I called it The Relationship That Broke Me. And it really did have a lot to do with the relationship that I had with myself. But I think it goes even deeper than that because it wasn't just about the fact that I didn't love myself and the only way I felt I was worth something was by being chosen by others. But it also has to do with the fact that I didn't know myself. And I talked about that in the first episode as well, as how I didn't know myself. And I've now, since I'm continuing to get to know myself and learn and love life. But I look back on that time sometimes trying to pinpoint, well, when did the spark die? When did I lose it? And I think a lot of people have that thought is, well, where did it go? When did I lose it? And they try and pinpoint an exact moment in their minds of when their spark died. And the thing is, when our spark dies, it's never just one moment of the flame went out. It's a slow burn of you're suffocating. Picture like when you're putting a candle out and you have to put something over it and it suffocates the flame. It's like that in slow motion. You're just slowly suffocating yourself. And it's the ways in which, you stop enjoying the things that you used to. The hobbies that you loved, you have no interest in anymore. Getting out of bed in the morning is a chore and you're like, I don't want to do it. And I know I'm describing depression. And the thing is, I don't want to just sit here and label everybody who lost their spark as depressed, because that's not the case. It's not always a clinical depression. And if you feel like you are, absolutely, please see a psychiatrist, a therapist, talk these things out. And even if you're having these feelings, please go see a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I don't want that to be the vibe I'm giving off. But sometimes we lose our spark because we forget to slow down and enjoy our life and ourselves. Before I continue diving in on this episode to something else that I want to talk about that inspired this episode is Olivia Dean's new album, The Art of Loving. And I mean, this album is obviously everywhere, and it's now made me an incredibly big Olivia Dean fan. I love what she's doing. I love her energy. But there's also everyone talks about oh my God, these songs scratch an itch I didn't even know I had. And that is so true. And I think it goes into finding our spark and joy in life, because and I talked about this too earlier this season, but I'm always somebody who feels emotion very deeply. I feel big emotions. I want to be loud with my emotions. And I never again am going to apologize for who I am and who I almost said and who I want to be. I'm not quoting Camp Rock right now. Oh my God. Guys, I need to sleep. But sure, I'm not going to apologize for those things anymore. But I think what this album reminds us too is joy and love aren't just found in romance, and it's for people who find love in all places. They find it in the solitude of their day. They find it in their friendships. They find it in their hobbies and their passions. And, to me, it's an album about the art of loving in all forms. It's in our solitude, in our romantic relationships, in our friendships. That's what this album is about. And it's about experiencing all those forms of love so deeply and profoundly and just in our bones. And that's when if you can feel life like that, that's when you've got your spark. That's when you've got something special. And when it comes to how we live our lives, kind of going into, I guess this doesn't even just apply to romantic relationships. It can apply to friendships as well. I always say, who we surround ourselves with defines us. And it does. It shows a lot about us based on the people that we surround ourselves with. But something too that doesn't just make romantic relationships incompatible, it can be platonic ones as well, is whether you want a big life or a little life. And big life isn't just about chasing fame and adventures and all these things. And a little life isn't just about being a trad wife on a farm. Little lives are the ones that are calm and peaceful and quiet. You enjoy your solitude. And big lives, it is about the adventures. You want vibrancy. You want big emotions and big experiences. And to me, I think a good, healthy life that is full of love and joy has a little bit of both of those things. You're having your adventures. And that's how I feel with touring. I feel like touring has given me that gift of I'm having these huge experiences and all these adventures, and I've pushed myself creatively. I'm unlocking parts of myself that I never thought I would. And it's making me appreciate my little solitude more, the quiet moments, the peaceful moments. Something weird that I do now is I sleep with my blinds open. I know that sounds sociopathic and you're like, Meg, you're asking to get killed. I'm in an apartment high up. No one can see me. It's fine. But I leave my blinds cracked because I like the sunlight waking me up in the morning. And I love that feeling. It's, enjoying the peace and calm of walking my dog for 30 minutes in the morning. And it's enjoying these small, quiet, peaceful moments and truly appreciating them that make everything else, it recharges me and it makes everything else feel so much better and bigger. And, this week alone is a prime example of what I mean of having that balance, because I've had a shoot every single day this week. I am running on 4 hours of sleep right now. I was running on 4 hours of sleep yesterday. I was in the studio for 12 hours the day before that. And it would be so easy for me to be like, I'm exhausted, I'm burnt out. And I am feeling that. And but I put a boundary up for myself of, hey, next week I'm not booking any shoots. And that's important too, is having your boundaries so you don't lose your spark. And we'll touch on that in a minute. I want to remember how much this week has meant to me, because like I said, Monday I had an event shoot. Tuesday, Franny and I worked on an exciting new project. Franny Cash is my artist, one of my artists that I work with. Wednesday, I was in the studio all day with Kip Moore working on his next project and capturing all that. Thursday, I got to go with Franny. It was the opening night of the Brandon Lake tour, and I'm so proud of those photos. And then at midnight, Church Clothes dropped. And Church Clothes is a beautiful song, and I'm so proud of Franny for it. But it was my first major single cover that I got to shoot for a label, and also official music video for a label, visualizer music video, whatever you want to call it. And I'm really proud of that work. I am proud of what Franny and I created together. I am just so happy that she trusted me and my creative vision. And I never thought I would be in this place years ago. And then today, like I said, I'm home for 8 hours and I'm going back out on the road with Chris Young, my other artist that I tour with. And he's got some exciting stuff coming up and some exciting projects I'm being brought in on. And I'm just so grateful to be here. And I don't think I would appreciate where I am at now if I hadn't lost my spark once before and worked so hard to get it back. And I hate to say it, but I really feel like it's good character development and good for the plot to lose your spark at some point. That sounds so fucked up, I know, but the hard work you have to do to get it back, it rebuilds you stronger, and it makes sure you have a deeper appreciation for everything else in your life. And that's what I mean when I say like the hard times make us who we are. The good times are really meant to be enjoyed. They're meant to be loved and cherished. And the bad times are meant to build us back up and make us who we are and show us our capabilities. And I am grateful for it all. And, I always say, if I ever had the chance to go back, would I do anything differently? No, I wouldn't. I could sit here and say I would leave my ex sooner. I could sit here and say I would cut people off sooner. Sure, I would love to do that. But that's not who I was at that time. I didn't have those lessons and those tools, and I wouldn't have. And anything that could have led me away from being where I'm at today, I wouldn't want that. So it's worth it to go through it all again if it means I get to be here today. And there is such a peace of knowing that and feeling that. And that is how I know I got my spark back. So from one woman to another who has lost her spark, I want you to remember that there aren't going to be times where the flame flickers. There are going to be those times. It's how you remember to protect yourself, protect your energy, and keep life going that is going to make sure you don't lose it again. And that's not to say if you do or don't that you've failed. Like, life is all about these experiences. And I think that, it's a roller coaster. So signs that we're losing our spark. It's not just about the loss of enjoyment. I think of life in terms of color. And when I'm really happy, everything feels brighter and more vibrant. When I feel myself drained, everything feels muted. That's how I feel is the best way to describe losing your spark, is everything just feels muted. It feels dull. It's not necessarily bad, but you're not really feeling anything else. And I think as humans too, sometimes it can be really hard to feel joy in such an overstimulating world. I mean, we're being served thousands of ads probably every single day. Everyone has an opinion. The world always seems to be on fire. Like, there's so much injustice, so much violence, so much cruelty, so much heartache. All of that is like frying our nervous system. And this is why it's so important to have social media boundaries with yourself of who you follow, who you engage with, who you interact with. But going further than that, it's knowing how to recover from those instances, right? Another way to describe, I think, either connecting with people or losing your spark is, I always talk about how we have to fill our own cups first, right? It's so important whether to fill your own cup, and then when a romantic partner comes into your life, they make that cup overflow. I make that analogy all the time. So if you are struggling to feel joy, if you are struggling to feel your spark again, picture your cup, right? The water is low. You go to pour water into your cup and it's just bouncing off because there's saran wrap over it or something over it that you can't see. And so so you think you're open to the world and you're really closed off emotionally. You're really shut down. You're really burnt out. And this analogy can be used too for like trying to connect with somebody else, whether it's a friendship or romantic relationship. If somebody is not in a place to connect, it's going to bounce off. The water is not going to go into the cup. And so it's how do we reopen ourselves? And it's first starts with being honest with yourself of where is this coming from? And I always say we have to ask ourselves the who, what, when, where, why questions. And you're not going to be able to pinpoint an exact answer of when you lost your spark. But when is the first time you noticed it? That's important. When is the first time you noticed that you lost your spark? Who was in your life at that time? What were you doing? And then you can also ask yourself, when was the last time you felt your spark, felt your joy? Where were you? What was your life like? In tracing those steps back, I don't want us to live in our past, but I think we have a lot. If we can learn anything from our past, it's how to not make the same mistakes. I mean, hello, we're watching a lot of history repeat itself in the world right now, and I won't dive too much into that. But our pasts aren't meant to be lived in, they're meant to be learned from. So we can grow, so we can heal, so we can change. I think this podcast shows how I've been learning from my past to not make those same mistakes. I think a big reason too why people struggle to feel joy nowadays is we've lost a lot of nuance in the world, especially when it comes to being creatives, right? Like sometimes good is good enough. Not everything needs to be this groundbreaking, profound piece of art that's going to change the world and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes good is good enough. Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes there's things you like about it. Sometimes there's things you don't, especially when it comes to an album. I talked about Sabrina Carpenter's Man's Best Friend album last week on this subject. And it's true. And that goes for everything in life. Sometimes you can just have a good day. Sometimes a good day is just a good day. If you can find one thing in your day that was just simply good, you're doing just fine. You're okay. I think too, a lot of the times we lose our spark when we attach too much of our validation or our worth into external things that are outside of our control. This is especially true as creatives. We're chasing numbers, we're chasing a paycheck, and it can go for anybody, not just creatives, but if your self-worth is tied up in how much others value you, you are setting yourself up to lose your spark 1000%. And this is how we have to practice detachment and recognize when things aren't personal, recognize when, some things are just no longer for us. I think the most powerful thing we can do in our lives isn't just knowing when to walk into a room and when to take an opportunity. It's knowing when to walk out of a room. It's not always about the doors that we're going to open for ourselves. It's sometimes about the doors that we close for ourselves and close on our way out. And I think that this can be applicable to love, career, friendships, like knowing when you have stayed too long, knowing when something is no longer serving you. This goes back to the big life, little life thing. Like, I know I'm somebody who is chasing a big life and wants to continue to live that big life. Do I want my slow moments? Do I eventually want a family? Yeah, I think so. But I can't be with somebody who wants a little life. I know we will be incompatible. And I also know as somebody who has big emotions and I love to connect with people, it's made me bad at dating. And I talked about this with my therapist. I was like, I just feel like I'm really bad at dating because I don't care what someone's favorite color is. I don't care like the mundane shit. I want to know your deepest, darkest fears. I want to know what lights you up. I want to know those things about yourself because that's how I connect with people. And it makes me really bad at dating because dating a lot of the times is so surface level and so shallow. But I know there is somebody out there for me who is going to amplify these parts of myself and love these parts of myself. And in the past, I've only dated guys who have dulled that and have been incompatible and just told me I'm too much and all these things. And so I think part of not losing your spark this is why it's so important to not tie your external worth, your validate. I'm getting tongue-tied. This is why I say it's so important to not tie your self-worth into external validation, because the longer I spent trying to be what I thought everybody else wanted me to be, and the more I was self-abandoning, the longer it took me to find myself again, find my spark again, and actually love myself and find the people that are meant for me. I have never felt more seen and loved by the people in my life than I do today. And it's because of how I found myself. And I just think that, you have to be your big, bold, crazy self. You really, really do. Because I think too, like life, the emotions we feel in life are really special. And you're probably thinking, Meg, when did you turn into such like a hippie? I know I'm sounding really like woo-woo hippie these days, guys. But it's because I feel really sad for the people who don't experience life this deeply and emotionally. I don't know. I think it's a beautiful thing to connect with others. I think it's a beautiful thing to feel such big emotions. And this is why, from movies and music and really feeling the passion and purpose in a song or whatever it is, like I feel sad for people who don't experience life that way, because it is a special thing and it's something that makes me feel more alive and makes me feel more motivated and just more like myself. I don't know. Maybe I'm an asshole for saying that. I very well could be. I think part of getting our spark back is learning to pay attention more. There is love all around us, and I've experienced love in all forms, in romantic settings, in platonic settings, in my female friendships, in my family relationships, in the moments I have with myself. And each one is so special, and each one has made me who I am and contributed to my life in a way that is indescribable. And I think the only reason I've been able to realize that is because I've allowed myself to feel that feeling and feel those emotions. And I think it's so easy to forget all those other forms of love because we live in a day and age where romantic love is, society is set up to be in a partnership. Society puts such an emphasis on romantic relationships. And I think, our generation, even though we're the loneliest generation, I think people are waking up and seeing how important community is. I think, one of the things I love most about being a woman is the intensity and deepness of female friendships. They truly are something that is so special. And my girlfriends have raised the bar for me in all aspects of my life. They are the mirrors that I cannot ignore. They call me out on my shit. They remind me that I deserve so much more than a guy who can't even plan a first date and who can't text back other than to say you up. My female friendships are the thing that have reminded me who I am when I've lost my spark. And so I think one of the first steps to regaining your spark is maybe reconnecting with people and friends and places that you've neglected for a little bit, and maybe took for granted, honestly. I think sometimes too, with losing our spark, it almost makes us selfish and it puts a chip on our shoulder of feeling like the world is against us. And I think you have to remember how to be a villager again before you get your village back. And it's everything from, if you agreed to go to a friend's birthday and you don't feel like going, you're going to that birthday. If you said you would pick your friend up for the airport, but there's some traffic and now you don't want to, you're going to pick them up from the airport. Doing things like that for others, one, it does feel good to show somebody how much you care and love them. But that's what's going to make people receptive to you again, is when you're first a villager. It's like the chicken or the egg thing, I guess, in a way. I think that's one of the first ways we get our spark back. The second thing to getting our spark back is balancing romanticizing our past with getting stuck in our past. And what do I mean by that? Again, I am a sentimental girly. I have photo albums going all the way back to my freshman year of college. I need to print my photos from the end of 2024 and all of this year. I haven't had a chance to do that. I have memory boxes in my closet with old cards, even like old cards from old boyfriends. And it's like, why would you keep that? It's a piece of my history. I don't care. But I can go through those things and reminisce on those good times without feeling stuck and wondering why I can't go back, because I don't want to go back. And I think we have to remind ourselves the past is the past for a reason, and remind yourself of why you walked out of certain doors, even if it's writing it down. I think one of the biggest ways to heal from anything is writing it down and putting thoughts onto paper. There is such a freeing thing about getting those thoughts out of our heads. This is part of why I think I started the podcast. Like I always say, it's my living diary, and it really is. All of that to say, I don't think life is meant to be so loud and chaotic. Yes, you can live this big, crazy, adventurous life of touring and fame, whatever, social influencing, whatever it is. But life, you don't only have to find joy in life in these big, extraordinary, loud moments. That's just going to burn you out. I think it's important to remember to find joy in the small, in the ordinary, in the things that are just good enough sometimes. And it's really, really easy to forget that in a society that places so much value on the material things and status and clout chasing and did you get invited to this brand trip, or how many followers do you have on Instagram? Like, it is so easy to get lost in all of that, but then you look around and realize you don't actually have anything. And so remembering what you tangibly love in your life is so, so important in terms of getting your spark back. Getting your spark back also requires self-care in a way that's going to call you out. You know, it's not just about coddling yourself and giving yourself, grace. That is all well and dandy, but sometimes you also need a little bit of tough love too. And it requires you to go to the gym for your mental health because you have to do it. It requires you making your bed in the morning. It requires you going to that job that you hate. Like, sometimes getting your spark back is reminding yourselves that there is a means to certain ends in our lives, and it is all for a greater purpose. I don't really know if that made sense, but yeah, I'm going with it. I'm a little delirious. I'm a little sleep deprived. I don't know. Y'all, I'm freaking tired. So I think I want to end this episode by kind of posing an exercise for you guys. So I want us to look at life as a long hallway. And there's a whole bunch of doors in that hallway. Some of them are open and some of them are closed. Some of them you already know what is inside. Some of them you have no clue what's behind the door. And you need to compartmentalize your life behind all of these doors. First, I would ask yourself, which doors do I need to close? Which ones do I need to walk back into? And which ones feel really scary to walk into? Because oftentimes, the best doors to walk through in life are the ones that feel the most scary. I know that first freaking hand. Do you think I felt confident jumping into touring? Absolutely not. Literally, my first show was an arena tour. It was an arena show. I thought I was about going to pass out before I hit the stage. And it was insane, but I did it. And I haven't looked back since. So first, asking yourself that. The next thing I want us to visualize for this exercise is as you're walking in the hallway, there's a lot of people in it. Who are the people that you feel scared to walk past, or you see them in the room and it makes you hesitant to go in it? And who are the ones that are propping you up, that are cheering you on as you walk down this hallway? This is a great way to check in with yourself too, of who in your life you need to set boundaries with and who in your life maybe should no longer be in your life. I've done a lot of cleaning house this year with people, and it was really, really hard. But at the end of the day, I recognized that my energy was not always being matched, and there were certain incompatibilities there, and that some of the friendships just ran their course, and we're entering different phases of life, whatever it is. Doesn't mean that there's a loss of love. It just means I need to save my time and energy and space for the things that are meant to be in my life. And that's the thing too. It's not always needs to be a dramatic ending or falling out. Like, we only have so much to give in our lives. You can't prioritize everybody while still prioritizing yourself. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not tending to the flame of your life and your spark and all those things, how are you going to do it for other people? How are you going to be there for other people the way that they need if you can't even be there for yourself? You can't. And I realized that for a long time. I talked about this with creatives. Like, if you're not taking care of yourself as a creative, if you're not fueling your own life, you can't be a good creative for your clients. This just goes to everything in life. If you are not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of others. If you don't know how to soothe your own emotions, if you don't know how to handle your own emotions, you're not going to be able to handle the emotions of others. You're not going to be able to be a good partner, a good friend, a good daughter, mother, wife, whatever the role is. You're just not. So when it comes to getting our spark back too, just like it's not instantaneous that we lose it, it's not instantaneous that we gain it back, right? It's finding your spark again is not this big 4th of July fireworks show. It's the little bits and moments with friends. It's like a little sparkler that you light, you know? It's the moments of laughter with friends. It's finding your favorite hobby again, or picking up a new hobby, doing something that you've been saying you want to do, taking your dream out of the notes app, whatever it is. Your spark will come back, but you have to fuel the flame. You have to be the one to keep that flame going. Life is not just going to be hunky-dory dandy. There's going to be things that try and drown you, drown it out, whatever it is. I'm losing my train of thought. Oh my God, am I tired? Holy crap. I think I need to just wrap it here. Also, yes, I know it's 70 degrees outside still and I'm wearing a sweater, but I really like this sweater, okay? It's brand new and I've been dying to wear it, but Tennessee heat is not letting up at all. And I just really wanted to wear this freaking sweater, okay? Anyways. All of that to say, if you are really someone who is struggling to find themselves again, I would encourage you to do that exercise, even journal down, like, what is one thing I found joy in today or this week? Starting there, focusing on those positive moments is really helpful. You know, asking yourself again, when was the last time you felt your spark? Who was with you? What did your life look like? All of these things. Really getting in touch with yourself is going to be the first step of getting your spark back. And I know you've got it in you, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. There was a time in my life I really thought this was what life was going to be. And I was so sad and so depressed. And I still struggle with all those feelings. But this week right now, the way I am feeling is a reminder that even in those sad moments, that there is so much life to live. But that is all for this week's episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I'm your host, Meg Reynolds. If this is your first episode with me, I promise I'm not always this chaotic. Actually, that is a lie. I'm always this chaotic when I speak. It's fine. It's fine. But I promise we have some great guests here. So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me. If you are not already, make sure you leave us a If you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. We are at NTGND Podcast. You can just search Not the Girl Next Door Podcast. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok. Just search Not the Girl Next Door Podcast. You will find me. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. That always helps. And I will see you guys next week for another episode. Bye for now. Cool.